division is in full effect. And let me tell you right now, people are coming my way. They're starting to see what I've been talking about. Because what Howie Roseman is doing is he's playing the compensatory pick game. He is planning in 2 years to restock this defense with Jalen Hurts' huge contract. Dallas still stinks. Yo, by the way, Dingbat here, and hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're hanging in there. I know things seem bleak right now. I know things seem like, you know, very frustrating. You're going to go to a team that was one drive away from winning the Super Bowl to a team that is going to lose all these free agents. But there's method to this madness. There's a method to this madness. I've been trying to talk about it over the course of the last week, and I think people are finally starting to see what I was talking about. Now, we're going to get into it in a second, but before we do that, if you're new to the channel and you like the content, make sure you hit that like button. More importantly, make sure you subscribe for daily Eagles content, NFL content, free agency, the draft, all that stuff. We don't mess around here. It's going to be nonstop. There is no off season, okay? And just remember, I am the most censored, most throttled Eagles content creator in all of the internet. Make sure you subscribe to find out why. And if you've been subscribed for a while, thank you so much for your support. I am just honored and humbled by the amount of love I get. I don't know. I know I look like Denzel Washington, but it's got to be more than just that. Now, anyways, I was like heartbroken last night, and I am to a big degree tonight with the whole CJ Gardner-Johnson, and the fact that he may leave. I believe that the Eagles, and I believe it's a mistake to let him go. I believe a guy his age, with the ability to play safety and slot corner and the versatility that he brings, is really going to be hard to replace, even through the draft within the next 2 years. But that's the thing. The Eagles are playing a compensatory pick game, okay? I was sitting there and I was having to go back and forth with Joey Shakes today about this. And I think he's finally starting to see where I was coming from last week when I was talking about how to go about building this team. And maybe at times to certain people it sounds like I'm going, one day I want defense, one day I want offense, and I totally get it. So hopefully maybe now people are starting to see what I was talking about, starting to understand what I was talking about. Because when you're about to lose the amount of defensive players the Eagles look like they're going to lose, you're talking about Bradbury. You're talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson. You're talking about Javon Hargrave. You're talking about Fletcher Cox. It looks like Brandon Graham's going to come back, but they're talking like $6 million a year. Of course they're going to take him for that much money, okay? It's a deal, but that's because Brandon Graham's homegrown. He has loyalty to Philly. When you get guys like Bradbury and you get guys like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they only played 1 year in Philly. I think the feel for loyalty to that team or city, it just isn't there yet. It takes time. That's why drafting guys are so important. And the Eagles have to pay Jalen Hurts. They're going to have to pay him a big contract. Now, they're going to structure the contract so his money doesn't really kick in this year, that it'll kick in 2024. And that's why Howie Roseman is actually, what he's doing is actually not really a bad idea. It sucks to go through it right now, okay? Because what he's doing essentially is he's going to pay Jalen Hurts big money. He's got a very good offense, and he is going to take the next 2 drafts, and he's going to restock this whole defense, okay? He's got picks this year. He's got 2 first-round picks this year. He's got 2 second-round picks next year. And then you talk about compensatory picks. The Eagles could, if everything goes right, it could have 3, 4 third-round picks next year. A couple fourth-round picks. They could have up to 12 picks where we're at right now. And remember, they have 2 number 2s. So Howie is looking at the next 2 years and saying, we can restock this whole defense with draft picks on rookie deals and have these guys under contract 4 or 5 years throughout the life of Jalen Hurts' contract extension. Okay? This will give the Eagles the ability, especially if you draft right, which means Howie's got to stay within the SEC. That's where we're safer. But if he drafts right, if the Eagles draft right over the next 2 years, it's going to be a lot of defense. And if they do a good job, they'll be set. They'll be set. Now, here's the thing. And this is where people, I think, are starting to see what I was trying to talk about. If you draft a defensive player, let's say in this year's draft, let's say you draft a defensive tackle, all right? So let's say you drafted, let's say it's Jalen Carter, right? I'm just going to throw his name out. Forget the off stuff. I'm just using him from a purely talent perspective, okay? You get him, you plug him in, you put him where Hargrave was. He's not going out in his rookie year and having 11 sacks. He's not going out in his second year and having 11 sacks. These rookies come in, and it takes time to get going, okay? Every once in a while, you get rookies who come in, and they're fantastic right off the bat. But to get multiple guys that would come in and all be as good as Hargrave, Bradbury, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is not going to happen. So we're looking at really restocking this defense in a 2-3 year time period, okay? During the Jalen Hurts contract extension. And this is what I was talking about for the last week. So when I talk about, yeah, you got to get defense and you got to sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and then you hear me talk about offensive players, it's not wishy-washy what I'm talking about. It's building with two different goals in mind, okay? The first goal is to restock your defense over the course of the next 2-3 years during Jalen Hurts' contract extension. You get a bunch of guys that you drafted come in, play on rookie deals, then all of a sudden, that contract isn't too bad. You got a bunch of guys tied up for 4 or 5 years. Shout out to Digital Print House for sending me this. Look at that. Smoking a stogie. We're going to be smoking a lot of stogies. I haven't had any since the NFC Championship game. But, anyways, what the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah. So you get these rookies that are going to come in, and if they play well during Jalen Hurts' contract, in the middle of his extension, you're going to have these guys under rookie deals. Fantastic. That's what you want, okay? So in 2-3 years, the Eagles, they should be prime-time Super Bowl contenders for the next 4 or 5 years after that, okay? Now, where the gap is and where the difference is this year coming up, all right? You don't get those 12 draft picks, all those compensatory picks, until the 2024 draft. You get the draft picks this year, and then you play a season, then you get those picks. They're looking at this as a 2-year build. I don't want to say a rebuild, but a retool. But when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who's going to make the money he makes, you've got to have successful drafts. So what I talk about and what I've been focusing on and saying and throwing out there to people is this. Yes, we are going to use the draft primarily over the next 2 years. Okay, minus, you're going to take a couple offensive players here or there. But I think you're going to see a lot of draft picks defensively the next 2 years. But what about this year coming up, okay? 2 or 3 years, Eagles are looking actually pretty good with all the picks that they have. They should be fine. But what do you do about next year? There's 2 things to do, right? Because you're going to go defense pretty heavy, I think. I think everybody knows this year they're going defense. I think next year they're going to go defense. So what do you do in order to be competitive in 2024? While you have young defensive players coming in, refilling the guys like Bradbury, like Hargrave, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, T.J. Edwards. While you're replacing those guys and you're doing it with young guys, then they've got to learn. They've got to play. They've got to get experience. And with experience and with young play comes mistakes. They're not going to be as good as they were last year. They're going to allow more points. So how does Howie Roseman, how does he become more competitive or just as competitive this year coming up as he was the season we just had? How does he stay a contender? And I'm not talking about getting to the playoffs. I'm talking about how do you stay a Super Bowl contender in an NFC conference that is weak? How does he do it for 1 year while his defense is retooling? See, going into 2024, that season, you're going to have had a huge influx of young talent on this roster. So the way I see it is you take care of the defense primarily in the draft over the next 2 years to restock. But this year coming up, the idea and what I'm saying and what I think the Eagles are going to do that's going to surprise people is Howie is going to actually focus on the offense for next year. Now, that's not the main priority. The main priority is to restock your defense over the next few years, over the next 2 drafts. However, this is a really good offense right now. The Eagles still have a really good offense, an elite offense, some people can say. But it still can be better. And if you can add one piece, maybe one piece on offense, maybe one player on offense could probably, 2 players on offense could probably take this offense to a whole nother level. I'm talking about a team that scores over 30 points a game. Okay? Now, what this would do is this would allow your young defense, your young defensive players that you're restocking over the next 2 years to get experience, to play. And basically, the offense would help to, I don't want to say carry, but kind of carry the defense for at least 1 year. Now, next year, we'll see where they're at cap-wise and what will open up for them. But if you go out and let's say for instance, let's say for an example, all right, let's say the Eagles determined that Bijan Robinson is their #1 running back, okay? And I'm not getting in a debate between him and Jamar Gibbs. I like Gibbs very much. But I'll take either one of them, by the way. But let's just say, for argument's sake, they think Bijan Robinson is the guy. He's a stud, okay? But they don't want to take him at 10. So what if you take the best defensive player on the board at 10? And then at 30, you say, you know what? We got the 30th pick and we got that extra second-round pick next year. We're going to have 3 to 4 third-round picks that season. We can always get up in the second round if we have to. Let's trade that second-round pick. Let's say the Saints one. Let's trade that and the Eagles pick, the 30th pick, and move up. Try to get up to 20, 18, and then take Bijan Robinson if he's there, for example. If you did that, you would get a running back like him in, for 4 or 5 years on a rookie deal, okay, which is going to be cheaper than what they're franchise tagging guys like Saquon Barkley for. So now you have a running back on a rookie deal for 4 or 5 years. You got an influx of defensive players for 4 or 5 years. I believe a guy like Bijan Robinson makes an instant impact on your team, okay? An instant impact. If you add a running back, a better running back, an upgrade, and listen, I like Miles a lot, but Miles is also injured a lot. If you did that for 1 year, even if you, and some people don't like Derrick Henry, that's fine. I like him. I don't think it matters what system you put him in. The Philadelphia Eagles have shown that they could adjust their system and their offense to whatever is needed in order for them to be successful. Let's say you added a Derrick Henry to your team for 1 year. Let's say you do this. Let's say you draft a defensive player in the first round at 10. At the 30th pick, you take Jamar Gibbs. But in free agency, you traded for Derrick Henry. Now you have Derrick Henry and Gibbs are your running backs. Do you understand how explosive this offense would be? Okay? They would be scoring over 30 points a game. Now, while you have these young defenses and you're still trying to rebuild the defense over the next 2 years, your offense is so good that you can win a lot of games because you just scored too many points. Okay, the Kansas City Chiefs did not win with defense. Okay, the Eagles scored 35 points on them. So to me, there are 2 lines of thinking about this all season. One, you give Jalen Hurts his contract and you restock your defense with your compensatory picks, and this is over the next 2 years. Then the other line of thinking is, the other part of it, rather, is how do we be competitive for 2024, okay? Number one goal, Jalen Hurts contract extension. Rebuild your defense through the draft. Number two, how do you go back to the Super Bowl in 2024? How do you compete in 2024? I'll tell you how you do it. You go and make your offense better so that it could basically cover some of the holes that you're going to have on defense while you're restocking, while the rookies are learning, okay? That's how you approach this all season. That's what I think the Eagles are going to do. Now, we can argue who the players are, or I don't like Derrick Henry, we should go for this running back, or I don't like Bijan Robinson, we should go for this running back. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about just the overall strategy. The overall strategy is this. Draft defensive players over the next 2 years, restock that defense over the next 2 years, sign Jalen Hurts to his contract extension. In order to be competitive and to help your defense and help those young guys on defense, go out and make your offense even better. This will allow the Eagles to be competitive next year while they restock their defense over the next 2 years. This is what Howie Roseman is thinking, in my opinion. I believe this is what we're going to see. And it would not surprise me that people are kind of shocked at some point when the Eagles do something offensively that nobody's expecting. We're not even talking about third wide receiver. Make your offense better for 2024. Restock over the next 2 years with draft picks on defense. And the Eagles, if they do it right and they draft right and they get the right guys, they're going to be very successful, and they have a chance to go back to the Super Bowl. Just my opinion, how I feel about it. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. Of course, don't be a dingbat. Remember, it's Howie Vision. We're all just living in it. Now, one thing I want to make clear about what I was saying is I don't want C.J. Gardner-Johnson to go. I want him back. I think the Eagles should bring him back. A 25-year-old guy who can play safety and slot corner, very versatile. I think he's worth more than a third-round compensatory pick. So I still believe that the Eagles should try to work it out with him. I still hope he comes back. But listen, you can't blame the guy that wanting to go get top dollar on the market. It's just the way it is. And it's one of the things that can happen when especially when you don't have guys that you drafted or aren't homegrown and only played in your city for 1 year. It happens. This is like Jimmy Butler 2.0. Denzel Washington out.